whether you like sales or like people or not, I can teach you how to do it if you're willing. And right now, your back's against the wall. You need to learn how to do it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I think sometimes people think they have other options. And most of you, statistically, you don't have other options. This is it for you tonight. And whoever invited you, you ought to be thanking them because they invited you down here and had enough courage to invite you. And they were probably worried about what you were going to say or worried about what you were going to think about them. And they still invited you to this thing. And here we are in Provo, Utah, right? You're listening to this 35-year-old kid up here in shorts talk to you about this. But I'm going to show you some stuff and try to, just show you some things that really, I think, it is all common sense stuff, but it's not common knowledge. It's not taught in colleges and in schools because, again, the banks, insurance companies don't want us to know. The government doesn't really want you to know about this stuff because they want you to go to college and get a bunch of student loan debt so they can make a bunch of money off of you.
Right.
Did you know that?
Right.
That's what they want to do. I'm not against education. What I am against is going into debt for education and paying interest to the government for the rest of your life.
Right.
Because that's what you end up doing. All right, so look at this. Employee compensation no longer keeps pace with the cost of living. A good job in America back in the 60s paid $5,000 per year. Back then, for the most part, mom didn't work out of the home, right? Mom was home with the kids. Now, dad worked very hard usually. Dad was working more than just 40 hours per week, okay? This 40-hour work week stuff, I don't know where that ever came from. That's a bunch of wimpy crap, that just, I don't know what that's about. I mean, you guys know 40 hours a week is just a small portion of your week. You can do a lot more if you're willing to work a little bit longer. Back then, they worked 60 to 80 hours a week to provide for their family, wouldn't they?
Yep.
Okay, but people were able to get by on that, and they were debt-free back then, by the way. They even paid cash for homes. You couldn't really get loans to get cars and stuff like that. You didn't have credit cards in the 60s. You had a very hard time getting a mortgage on a house, and if it was a mortgage, it was a 10-year loan. And you had to have 20 to 40% down. In fact, I think they had 50% down back then, I'm pretty sure. Is that unbelievable? Yeah. So, okay, now in the 70s, you made $10,000 a year. That was considered a good job. And for the most part, jobs kept up with that. Mom stayed home. In the 80s, $20,000 a year. For the most part, jobs kept up with that. As long as dad was working a full-time job and some part-time, get some extra hours, maybe have another job or work some overtime. You with me so far?
Yep.
Any of you remember the 80s? Any of you old enough to remember the 80s? Okay. And in the 90s, $40,000 a year was considered a good job. What did mom do in the 90s?
Started working.
Most moms were working in the 90s. They started to go to work in the 90s. Why?
Had to.
Because the cost of living was going up and the money wasn't.
Had to, right? They had to. So moms had to go to work. What started happening to mortgage loans in the 80s and 90s? Everybody was getting loans to get houses at that point, right?
Yep.
How about loans for cars? Okay, so it was just starting, right? All this debt cycle was just starting. Late 90s, early 2000s, what happened to credit card debt? Credit card debt started to shoot up like crazy. Okay, look at this. $80,000 a year back in 2000 was what you need to be making to have the equivalent lifestyle, not to be rich, to be middle class, to get by. Same lifestyle as the 60s. But the problem was in the 2000s, that average median household in America was only $50,000 a year. Okay? So here we are. We're actually beyond this now, right? 2010, look at what's happening every 10 years. This is just inflation is all it is, okay?
Right.
So 2010, you had to be making 160. Not to be rich. Now some of you are going to think, you think I'm crazy, you think I'm trying to trick you. The fact is you are very delusional if that's what you think. And the reason you're delusional, it's not necessarily your fault. You're ignorant, it's not necessarily your fault. It's because, I was ignorant too, right? It's because no one ever teaches you this stuff.
Yep.
But if you think about it, who owns their house free and clear today? Who owns their cars free and clear? Who has zero debt? Who has savings today? You just saw the statistics at the beginning of the meeting. And you know what's scary is jobs pay less now than they did back then. Now look, we're 2014. What does that mean? Where does our income need to be right now? About 180 grand a year, not to be rich. And I know what a lot of you are thinking, man, if I made 180 grand a year, I'd be rich. That's just because you're so used to making poverty income.
Yep.
And all your friends and all those people around you all make the same amount, so you think it's okay. Because that's the environment you're in. Is this scary or what? But now I'm putting a magnifying glass on the problem, and you're going, holy crap. Wow. And I'm telling you all this, and hopefully you actually take it, get involved with this, and do something about it. Unfortunately, most people see it once, they leave, and about a week from now, you forget it. Because you go spend time with all your crony buddies, right? That are all the same, and they just make you feel okay about being okay. You think you're okay, but you're not okay. Now, I'm trying to disturb the living daylights out of you. Because when you go home tonight, you should have a tough time sleeping. That's what I'm trying to do. Okay? You should be going, oh my gosh, I'm having nightmares tonight. I can't sleep. I got to do something. Now, this would be tragic if I wasn't going to get you a way out of this. I would just be depressing you all. You'd all be ready to jump off a bridge tonight. So I'm going to redeem. Don't leave right now, right? You don't let anybody leave right now. That would be dangerous, wouldn't it? Because you all just think the end of the world just happened. Okay? But look at this. Okay? Did you guys ever talk about this earlier in the meeting yet? Okay, there's 4 ways you can earn income in America today. There's 4 legal ways. Okay? There's a lot of ways. There's 4 legal ways. You could be an employee. You could be self-employed. You could be a business owner, or you could be an investor. Okay? Now, most of us are trained to go to school, get good grades, so we can get a good job, right? Get a good job with benefits, right? You trade time for money. The challenge with having a job is, guess who's in control of your life? The employer controls everything. Where you live, what kind of schools your kids go to, what kind of vacations you take, whether or not you can ever retire. If you're sick, you still got to go in sometime, all that stuff, right? They control your whole life. Self-employed people, some people that are employees go, I'm tired of working for somebody else. By the way, it doesn't matter what you work here. It pays whatever the position pays. All right? You took Bill Gates and you stuck him in Arby's over here, as a manager. He'd make whatever an Arby's manager makes, even though he's Bill Gates.
Right.
Make sense? So I'm going to go do my own thing. I'm going to become self-employed. Self-employed people own a job. So they also trade time for money. But there are some advantages here, because if you're good at what you do, you can make a lot of money. But the challenge is, if you stop working, guess what happens to your income?
Stops.
It stops. So, examples of self-employed people would be like dentists, doctors, lawyers, hairstylists, right? All those people are self-employed, okay? There's some liars in here, lawyers. I'm just kidding. So now another way to earn income is to be a business owner. Now a lot of self-employed people think they're business owners, but they're not. Here's why. Okay, a business owner owns a system. They hire and train other people to run their system, and they don't even have to be there, and they still make money. So they override their business. It's called overrides. Okay.
Right.
If you own this Arby's right here, you wouldn't even have to be there. You hire a manager to run it. You're not there, and every time that Arby's makes a profit, you make the most as the owner. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And then the fourth way, so how many Arby's would you want to own? That means you all of them, right? As many as you could. And an investor, that means that you own investments, obviously, and your money makes money. Your money works for you. Now, you look at that, which side looks more appealing, the left side or the right side?
The right.
Everybody always says the right side is where they want to be. If the right side is where everybody wants to be, why are most people on the left-hand side?
It's more common.
You don't know what to do.
Usually they just don't know how to get over here. I mean, right?
The left side's what they were taught.
Yeah, this is all they know, right? And they would like to get over here, but it takes money, or it takes ideas, it takes risk, and they don't even know where to start. So let me ask you all a serious question. If we're showing you a system tonight where we can show you how to start us on a part-time basis and start self-employed with us, learn our business, get licensed, and over the next 12 to 24 months, build an agency and become an owner, and own a Primerica location that would pay you $100,000 or $200,000 plus a year, would that interest you?
Yes.
Okay, that's what we're showing you tonight. Okay. Now, if you look at the left side, unleveraged, right? The right side is leveraged. That means you can do more and keep making more because you leverage your time. Okay. Other people are, and your money's working for you. You don't have to be there all the time to make money. The left side is where 95% of the population exists, but only 5% of the wealth exists. So that's a lot of competition for 5% of the wealth. Wouldn't you agree?
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you really want to keep competing for that 5% with those other 95% of people?
No.
Or do you want to become 5% of the population and have 95% of the wealth to share? See,
Yeah.
you choose. Nobody's forcing you to stay on the left-hand side. You may think your boss is forcing you, but they're not. Nothing's forcing you to stay here. The only person that would keep you from doing this is you. Okay? Make sense so far?
Yep.
All right. So,